What is going on, everyone? Badger here. Show to like and sub, and let's get into this. We got Critical Drinker doing a video about the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. I liked it. I did like it in the actual theater while watching it. I was like, this is a 9 out of 10. I don't know what everyone's talking about, but that was like at the height of the fun of the action scenes. Upon reflection and thinking over everything, I think it's a solid 8 out of 10. I know he says it's decent. I think it's good. But yeah, it could have been great. It is nowhere near the quality level that a Guy Ritchie is capable of. I liked Henry Cavill, and I don't think he was done a disservice, but it did leave me a little wanting. But we did get some great scenes. And like I said, I think it's a good movie, but let's see what Mr. Drinker has to say.
Okay, adequate, acceptable, fine. These words might not be the most eloquent prose ever committed to the page, but I think they neatly sum up my thoughts on the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, Guy Ritchie's World War II action heist movie about the first British Special Forces mission of the war, starring Henry Cavill and Alan Ritchson. A movie that has all the right ingredients to be something really special, on par with Inglourious Bastards and Snatch, but somehow never quite lives up to its potential. The result instead is a solid, dependable, and fun, if slightly unremarkable war movie with comedy elements that don't always land, and a script that drags in places and fails to make the most of its talented cast.
Okay, so right there, I thought all the humor worked. I wasn't bored through the entire movie. Even when they switched over to I think her name is Marjorie, the female part with the possibly diversity checkboxes, which were actually also good. I was never bored. I was interested in all of it. It's based on historical, the Winston Churchill's historical war novels or war books, but certain people at the end, when they show their actual historical pictures, they weren't there at the end, suggesting that they were in fact made up for this movie. But yeah, I don't know, man. All the action scenes worked. I enjoyed. I thought they were all fun. Thought they were all unique. I certainly would rather watch this again than Inglourious Bastards. No offense, Tarantino, but Inglourious Bastards didn't have enough action for my taste. This had all of that, plus the banter between. I thought everyone, fair enough, but still, and especially. And maybe this is the 2024 part, but it's like compared to what we've been getting. Oof.
The film kicks off in the dark days of 1941, with Britain struggling to hold its own against the Axis onslaught. Supplies of food and material from America are the only things standing between them and defeat, but German U-boats are sinking the supply ships almost as fast as they can be sent. With time running out and the situation growing desperate, Winston Churchill authorizes a risky Black Ops mission to a neutral island off the coast of Africa, with the aim of destroying the German cargo ship used to supply the U-boat fleet. The outcome of the war may rest on their actions. Needless to say, they need a team of highly motivated individuals for the job, so they recruit Maverick Officer Gus Phillips to lead the mission. He's your typical British eccentric with no regard for authority or other people's property, but he's extremely good at what he does, and soon he's assembled a team of like-minded individuals.
And Henry plays him perfectly. I love this character. We find out later on we have Ian Fleming as a naval officer, which I knew he was. And then at the end, it goes on to say that the Gus March character played by Henry is in fact the inspiration for James Bond, which is ironic because obviously he's a fan cast for James Bond. And Alan Ritchson was good. Yeah, he does a somewhat questionable Swedish accent, but everyone was good in it. It's like I think everyone was expecting a 10 out of 10 peak Guy Ritchie, and instead we just got regular Guy Ritchie.
And is on his way to the islands. Meanwhile, their undercover contacts in Africa infiltrate the German port and begin preparations for the attack. But
she's fucking great. She was great. I loved it. Really good, hot, sexy, did the acting really good. She plays a double agent. Really, really good.
The way is a small army of Germans.
And he was great. He was great. I know he plays a German or a Nazi, or he was in Inglourious Bastards, but he was really cool as a sadistic like gold merchant that she is liaisoning with.
Soldiers led by a ruthless SS commander who begins to suspect that all is not what it seems. When a last-minute revelation about their target threatens to derail the whole operation, will Gus and the boys manage to improvise their way through a nearly impossible mission, or will the Germans get the better of them? I said before that Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare has all the right ingredients to be an awesome awesome movie. Basically, Inglorious Bastards, made by the man who gave us Snatch and The Man from U.N.C.L.E., an old-fashioned action movie based on real-life World War II heroics with a modern twist, the kind of boys' own action-adventure that we've been desperately lacking in recent years. The problem is that all these promising elements don't quite mesh together into a cohesive end product. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's definitely entertainment to be had here. Cavill and Richardson are both on top form and seem to be having lots of fun with their roles. Cavill in particular acts as a kind of prototype James Bond, a bit rough around the edges, but possessing the kind of laconic self-confidence you'd expect from an upper-class Brit at this time period. It's a bit sad now when you realise that this is probably the closest he'll ever get to playing 007. Isa Gonzalez.
And like I said earlier, literally playing the character who was the inspiration for James Bond. And yeah, it's fucking work for me, man. I respect, I understand it, but yeah, I don't know. I thought the whole story was, and also, if we're believing this is a true story, well, they can't just start making shit up. It seems like they already maybe padded a little thing here and there that wasn't real. But if this is all actually described in Winston Churchill's diaries, well, I mean, it is what it is. And I did think it was a cohesive story. That was just me.
Is excellent as an undercover operative and femme fatale who has to use seduction as much as violence to achieve her mission. The movie never tries to turn her into a typical Hollywood girl boss who can outfight the boys, and well, she's not exactly hard on the eyes either. There's some decent set pieces that...
And she can sing. She's a whole singing number. Yeah, gorgeous.
Seem to use a lot of practical effects, which is always nice to see in a modern action movie, and for the most part, the movie manages to walk that fine line between serious war movie with actual stakes and consequences and breezy action adventure with comedic undertones without straying too far in either direction. It's definitely not perfect by any means, but I did get the impression that everyone involved actually cared about what they were making and seemed to be having lots of fun with it, and well...
And it was a fun movie.
So did I. On the other hand, though, there's plenty of annoying shortcomings that hold the film back from greatness. The first is the pacing and balance. The narrative is split between Gus and his team on the one hand, and Marjorie and Mr. Heron on the other.
Which, as I say, I did not have a problem with. I thought I would. I thought every time they switched away, I'd be like, can we just get back to Henry? No, this was just as good.
And the problem is that they feel more like two disconnected narratives competing for your attention rather than different strands of the same story that support and complement each other. Marjorie's sections aren't all that interesting for the most part. There's lots of traveling from place to place and gathering intel, but it's never compelling or urgent enough to hold your attention. I mean, the two...
It was compelling and it held my attention. I don't know what to tell you.
The actors are pretty good and they're doing their best with what they're given, but the script isn't sharp or witty enough to make me care that much about them.
Now that was the one criticism I got nothing to say. Like, I enjoyed this overall more than Inglourious Bastards. It's a lot of what I wanted that I didn't get in Inglourious Bastards, but obviously, at least for this one, the dialogue and the wit is not as sharp and as quick as a Tarantino or a Guy Ritchie at its best. So.
Also, I could be wrong about this, but I don't feel like World War II German soldiers would be quite so respectful and accommodating towards black people as they are in this film. The hallmark...
Yeah, even though a lot of it takes place in West Africa, which is why I do think those were inserts for, you know, underrepresented groups. That being said, those were characters that would make sense that she would use local, either crime bosses or whatever the guy was. He was basically like a local... weapons lender, money lender. The point is, I could see why they existed, and I thought they were good in their roles. But yeah, there were a couple things that were like, boy, I don't think those Yahtzees will be all right with that. But you know, suspension of disbelief a little bit, and the fact that there were financial reasons why.
Of Guy Ritchie movies was always the razor-sharp dialogue and quick kinetic editing that got you where you needed to be with minimal time wasted. Shit, man, The Gentleman proved that he's absolutely still got it in this department, but this film feels like a big step backwards in comparison. The flabby editing causes the film to drag at times. Gus and the rest of the team spend way too long at sea on their way to the mission rather than actually doing the mission, and the last-minute change of plans results in a rushed finale where I wasn't entirely clear on who was doing what or...
I wasn't lost. I thought it was pretty clear who was doing what and why. And the whole point of how long it takes them, that's sort of the plot of what actually happened, that they have to get to a certain spot by a certain time, but they have to read that. That's the sort of the movie, and that's what really happened. So if it's based on a real event, you can't change I mean, you can, but then that's sort of disingenuous. So that's just, it is what it is, bro. They adapted the real life event. The dialogue and all that is true. That is a little bit of a step down, but the pacing, I didn't have an issue with it.
why. The witty, biting dialogue I expected never really arrived either. Nobody has anything particularly insightful or interesting to say, and I feel like what you end up with is a group of really good actors doing their best to elevate some pretty mediocre material. Also, I've got to say, this film may have the worst Winston Churchill I've ever seen in a movie. The actor looks, sounds, and acts almost nothing like the guy.
Can't we get a better actor? I know it's a small part, but I think we can do better than this.
The obvious point of comparison with this film would be Inglourious Basterds, and I have to be honest, it's not a flattering comparison. The style, pacing, tension, and creative energy of Tarantino's film makes Ministry look like a by-the-numbers action flick in comparison. The Bastards, for
it's also ones that they're not even really comparable beyond they were World War II and there's a scrappy gang doing things. But it's like, this is an alternate reality history. It's a Tarantino film. It's not, they really aren't even comparable.
For example, were pretty well fleshed out as a team so that you knew who everyone was and how they were likely to act in a given situation. But aside from Cavill and Richardson, none of the others really get the screen time and development they need to be more than glorified background extras. Till Schweiger's Commander Lure feels like a pale imitation of Hans Landa, with none of the quirky personality traits or simmering menace of Christoph Waltz's character. Marjorie Stewart has the similar personal history to Shosanna, but it's nowhere near as compelling and tragic because it's dismissed with a couple of quick sentences. The film even has the same plot device of a character giving away their true identity to the villain with a momentary lapse of judgment that tips them off. But whereas it was
Yeah, that did happen. I did notice. That is one thing. I was like, that was a little close.
Subtle, smartly done, and internally consistent in Bastards, here it's so blatant and silly that it's hard to believe a trained operative would make such a dumb mistake. I mean, I guess I'm being kind of harsh here by comparing it to one of the best movies in the genre, but the thing is, I know what Guy Ritchie's capable of as a writer and director when he's operating at his best, and I know it's better than this. And as a result, what could have been the start of a really cool, fun new franchise is more likely to end up as a flash in the pan, quickly forgotten. Ultimately, while I think Ministry is a perfectly serviceable action flick elevated by a solid cast that'll probably keep you entertained for a couple of hours, it's not the kind of film you'll ever feel compelled to rewatch. And what could have been a great movie instead turned out to be disappointingly okay. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Well, I do feel compelled to watch it again, at least the action scenes. I had fun with it. I understand, though, clearly Drinker was expecting much more, was expecting Guy Ritchie at a 10, and I guess I was all right with the 8. Yeah, it could have been better. Everything could have been better. But of all the things, and I don't want to be like, oh, I'm just glad we got something that wasn't horrible. I enjoyed my time with it. Yes, it's not as good as he is capable of doing, but it was good. And Henry wasn't ruined, at least. At least he wasn't disrespected. I enjoyed his character. And yeah, just make him James Bond already. Let me know what you think of this. Let me know if you saw the movie, if you agree with Drinker, if you enjoyed it more than he did. What's your rating? Like I said, I'm still going with an 8 out of 10. I think it's more than decent. I think it's good. It's not great. It's not going to change anything. I don't think this was ever going to be a franchise, but it's good. It's good. So let me know what you think. Either way, make sure to sub if you have done that. Like, share, sub, all that fun stuff. If you've done that, thank you. If you're going to do that, thank you. And
well, bye.